Our first panel of the day is going to be talking about open banking. So I hope you're all in the right session. And joining me on stage here, we have Nicole Green, who's VP Product Strategy and Operations at Yapily. Nicole brings deep tech, market and product expertise to her role at open banking platform Yapily, where she's responsible for evolving strategy to help businesses embed the power of open banking into their products and services. And next to Nicole is, I'm going to get this right, Constanza Castro-Rejo.
Perfect.
Oh, yes.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Been practicing that for 6 weeks. Connie, as I will call her, has been responsible for stakeholder management at the Open Banking Implementation Entity since April 2020. And there she supports the creation of the open banking ecosystem and is a powerful advocate of the benefits that open banking can bring to both consumers and SMEs. And finally, making up our panel is Rolands Mesters. He is CEO and co-founder of Nordigen. Nordigen is the only freemium open banking API that connects to more than 2,300 banks, making it the largest network of bank connections in Europe. Rolands is a sales and growth hacker who's passionate about FinTech and alternative lending. So please welcome your panel. Okay, now obviously I said we're going to talk about open banking, so I suppose first of all, and I know we've got an educated FinTech savvy audience here, but what is open banking? Rolands.
Yeah, sure. So I'll maybe start with saying what closed banking is, because I think we're more familiar here with what closed banking is, at least vast majority of us. And what closed banking is the fact that, well, you have a relationship with your bank. That's where you store your money. That's where you store the data related to your financial whereabouts. And that data and the bank account is stuck with one institution only, and there's not much you can do with that data. The workarounds of how you can sort of make sure that your data that's stuck in your bank kind of moves around is like you used to be able to go to a bank and ask for a bank statement to be printed out, and then then they changed that to a PDF, sort of, which is environmentally more sort of good, but then that's not ideal, and that's kind of like where how the whole banking space really started, and then. To basically give more freedom to people, to have them have more control over their bank accounts. The idea of open banking was created, where that allowed people to be able to connect their bank accounts and use them as assets to migrate information around from their bank account to a third-party app or like to another bank if they want to, and to also to basically use automate what happens with the bank accounts, be able to push payments out from not just from within your banking interface, but also from outside. So that's kind of basically to give more control to account holders so that they can have more control over their information and how the money is flowing through their bank accounts.
Okay, and did you have something to add there, Connie?
Yes, I can add lots of things. So Roland's explained it beautifully, but I'd like maybe to add and provide context about open banking here in the UK, which is a unique approach, the one that we have here. Yes, it's unique because the Open Banking Implementation Entity, which is the organization that I work for, we are a standards body and they're responsible for implementing open banking in the UK. And open banking here appeared as a remedy. That's why we are led by a competition authority and not a finance authority. That it's what happens in the rest of the world generally, where open banking it's having a regulatory approach, because there are different countries and regions having different approaches towards it. But here in the UK, the Competition on Markets Authority, the CMA, maybe I will talk about it in that way, did a retail banking investigation and found out systemic problems where banks were not competing to get new clients or retain those customers. So they created open banking implementation entity as a remedy for those issues that they found. So basically our main goal is to improve customers' choice and to drive innovation and to disrupt retail banking to bring benefits specifically to audiences, small businesses and consumers. So as Rolands was just saying, open banking mainly, it's the process of enabling a third-party provider, which is likely to be a FinTech, to access our current account data, our transactional banking data, with the goal of potentially offering us different services. They can count, and FinTechs mainly will be organized, or we can refer to them in two different ways. The ones that use account or provide account information services, and the ones that provide payment initiation services. Just that.
Okay. And Nicole, Connie talked there about the benefits of open banking. Maybe you could elaborate a bit more on those. So what are the benefits? And I think it's also important that we should say, what are the downsides, if any?
Yeah, I'm actually going to start with the second part of that first in terms of what are the downsides. I think the biggest thing that we can talk about is that open banking is new. I think it's kind of like right now we're part of a very big beta experiment, right? This has been rolled out over a course of years, and I think really started to hit scale around, what, 2019, about 2020?
Yes, I think you're having a really good point there that I forgot to mention. So it kicked off in 2018. It took us 2 years to have the standard live. Currently in the UK, we have 6.6 million users of open banking. So if I think about 2 years ago when I joined the organization, it took us almost a year to grow from 1 million to 2 million users of open banking. Whereas here, it just took us less than 4 months, 3 months to grow from 5 to 6 million users of open banking. Another important metric, it's like open banking was mandated in the UK to the 9, not larger banks, but the 9 banks who together covered 85% of UK current accounts between businesses and consumers. But now we have over 90 banks who have adopted this standard and are offering open banking to its customers. There are over 250 FinTechs who also have adopted and have joined the open banking ecosystem. And this is amazing, and this is why what we believe that UK should be very proud about its what has been achieved. So we are 5 years in. There's a lot that still need to be done. We cover around 12% of UK digitally active of the UK digitally active population, basically. So there's a lot to do still, but there's a lot we believe there's a lot that has been achieved already in terms of the implementation of open banking. We have like 350 participants in the ecosystem. There are 750 other participants playing in our sandbox to bring new products to life. Last month we had over 1 billion API calls, which is a key barometer about the level of activity the industry is generating on a monthly basis. There were 6 million payments done using open banking, which represents a 500 year-on-year growth. So the growth, it's being exponential as we speak, but again, it's 6 million, it's 12% of the population. There's still a lot to do.
True. Okay, so we know where it started, and it's been phenomenal growth.
Yeah.
But going back to your point,
Yeah.
Outline some of those benefits and the potential pitfalls, if there are any.
Yeah, well, I think Connie was saying, it's phenomenal growth, but we're still learning. We're finding things that we need to improve as we go. So I think that's where we are from a kind of industry. I think we're a teenager, maybe, if we wanted to kind of age ourselves, right? We're going through that awkward stage. So that's kind of how I describe some of the pitfalls, and you can kind of imagine what comes with that when new kind of use cases are coming out, and it's very dynamic, but it also means that we're finding kind of things that we need to overcome. In terms of the benefit side, I think, if you take the flip side of that, I mean, this area is ripe for innovation, right? And so if you want to kind of break down some beneficiaries of what's happening with open banking, I think you can kind of think of 3 groupings. So there's kind of the players in the ecosystem, and so there's the FinTechs, or who are kind of creating these open banking solutions. solutions and taking those to market. It's created whole new businesses. So that's one side. Then there's the businesses that are able to consume these products, and this allows them to create more personalized and better financial products for customers. I'm going to just skip into a couple use cases, but for example, you're able to provide more information, to have more information about your customers so that you can do affordability and credit assessments. And this is actually really great for customers because it means that you can be more inclusive and potentially welcome more customers who you might have been unable to access services before. Based on the level of information that we have. The other kind of side, on the payment side, you can do stuff like one-click checkout using open banking as a payment rail. And that's really great because it allows for instant settlement. It typically is cheaper than if you were to use a credit card. You're not going to have an issue with chargebacks and stuff like that. So from a business side, you can create better products, but also realize the benefits of using open banking as part of your solutions. And then lastly, the consumers, well, not last, should be first. So they get the benefits of all of these products and more inclusivity. The one thing I want to call out, so Yapily actually just published this week a cost of living survey. And what that survey found was that, and this is in the UK, was that 95% of people in the UK, or the respondents to the survey, were concerned about what's happening with cost of living and worried. And what was really interesting is we asked them about what kinds of financial products and services they were using to be able to kind of manage this. And we were finding that about 2/3 of customers who responded in this were saying that they were, for the first time, using products to help them budget better, to manage their bills. And these are all kind of applications of open banking.
Absolutely. I read that survey as well, and it was interesting because I think it said something like 9 out of 10 people in the UK said that in the last 12 months they'd looked for alternative financial solutions. But I think it also said that only just half actually were familiar with the term open banking. Yeah. So do you think something needs to be done here? Because obviously it's something that has a role to play and it's a benefit to consumers. Is it important that they give it a name and call it open banking, or does that not matter? Rolands.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have two sides of that argument. One side of that argument would say, well, naturally, yes, because you need this technology to seem trustworthy enough for people to use. What you want is to make sure that the early adopters, who are typically, if you think about the adoption curve, the early adopters need to be sure that nothing funky is going to happen with their, most precious assets as they're connecting their bank accounts to some third-party apps. They need to make sure that they need to be sure that the rails are secure, and there's something who's actually thinking about security. So that's kind of one side of the argument. But as we go, the further we go into adoption, the less open banking as a sort of as a name is going to matter, because like today, for example, when we're making payments, we're not really thinking what kind of payments there are. Is that like paying with your phone on a counter? Is that a card payment? Well, yes and no, right? So it's kind of open banking. Hopefully, gets to that scale. And the faster it gets to that scale, the better. So, and then at that scale, it really doesn't matter, how many people actually know what open banking, means and what it is. So, I guess it's kind of like a bit of both. Yes, today it matters a lot. The developers who are building those, something on those technologies need to understand how they operate and be able to explain that to their end users who will be connecting their bank accounts. The further we go up that adoption curve, the less and less of an effect it actually is going to have.
Yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, if I could jump in. You said something really interesting there. So I was actually running a kind of industry forum for payments maybe like a month ago. And we actually got on this topic about when is industry going to start adopting open banking payments. And this was, payments seems to be a very hot topic right now with open banking, especially with things like variable recurring payments just coming out. And so what we were finding from all of them was they were kind of sitting and waiting. Part of that is the consumer adoption side of things. They don't want to invest in building a new payment solution if they're not sure people are going to use it. And the biggest thing they kept talking about was trust. And that, how do we establish that trust with the customer so that they feel comfortable using this? And I think it's a very interesting kind of cycle, or I guess, or self-reinforcing thing, right? They're waiting for customers to trust it, before they put it out there. But in the same way, it needs to kind of be exposed out there for customers to use and experience for them to be able to know and trust, right? So
I agree completely. Sorry, Connie, go ahead, and then I'll make my point.
Yes, lots of things come to my mind when I hear this, because of course, coming from the engagement team, what I'm bothered the most about is about adoption and usage of open banking. So for me, this 6.6 million is the key metric that I'm constantly looking at. And if we compare to, I don't know, contactless, the catalyst moment for contactless was the minute it was adopted by TfL and we all started using it, and it was convenient for us to using. So if we think about what's a successful implementation for it, it should be invisible. Like open banking should be that plug that unlocks and enables all these benefits. Like if we think about small businesses cannot care, like the founders of this and the business people behind cannot care less about if it's open banking or what is it. They want things to work. They want something that helps them get paid better, on time, cheaper, more effective, faster. They want to they will love the tools that provide them better insights about how their business is performing, that it will enable them and empower them to drive those efficiencies, to borrow better and faster and cheaper whenever they need their business to grow. So I feel open banking, it's doing and has enabled and has unlocked lots of these things. I feel there are lots yet to come. But it's a sign of maturity, I feel, that we're also having this discussion.
Okay, well, it is a discussion, which leads me beautifully into my call out to the audience. Yes, could we get the microphone over to the far end there? If anyone has any questions, please do throw your hand up. I want to get you guys involved in this conversation as much as possible. Okay, we've got a couple there. So if you just start by stating your name and where you're from, please.
Yep. Hi, Jonathan Cosgrove, founder of Wealthmaster. Thanks very much for the session. That was really insightful. So my question is more around when do we start going a little bit beyond open banking in terms of open finance? And maybe this is one for Connie with her open banking trust hat on, because it would be good to understand, at what point we start to legislate for open APIs with wealth management providers and things like that to kind of tie up the ecosystem.
Before you answer that, we haven't finished. We've got plenty more to come in this session. So we will be having more questions as well. Okay, so please, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, it's a super interesting question, the one that we believe all here want to know what's next for open banking. The open banking implementation entity, so it's now for the government to decide what's next. What we need to ensure is that we deliver the standard and the framework for open banking, and what we would love to see is that all this infrastructure that has been delivered for open banking, it's leveraged and there's harmonization towards open finance, that we do not need to ask, for example, customers to provide their consent again for different services. So what we would like to see, and we believe that would definitely support to fasten the process, to reduce the cost of implementation for open finance, is leveraged all the infrastructure that has been delivered for open banking. It's now for the government to decide. There's a strategic working group that it's informing the Joint Regulatory Oversight Committee, which is formed by the Payment System Regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, the Competition and Markets Authority, and ATEM Treasury. And the OBA is working as a secretariat for that group, and the SWG, which is the strategic working group, chaired by Brian Zung. It's gonna suggest JROC what's the next step, but it's not for the OBIE. Yes.
And Nicole.
We are ensuring the standard, it's performing, it's available, we're monitoring and doing all that function.
Nicole, just add to that.
Yeah, just to add on to that, there is in other places in the government, I think, talk happening, right? So through BASE, they've got and you can tell me what BASE stands for, business and
energy. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not good with the acronym. They have the smart data proposals that are out, and so that's looking at pensions, utilities, telecoms. I think savings. I'm trying to remember if it's savings and investments or not. Definitely pensions and insurance as well.
Yeah.
So it is looking at that, and I think the hope is that we build on the foundations of what's come with open banking to use that as a springing off place for bringing in these new data sources as that works through.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your question. I think we had another hand up as well, didn't we? Yeah, we'll come to you in a second. I'm just going to take a question that's come through from the event app, so thanks for sending this in. This is from Mohammed Osama. He says, while open banking makes the information available, don't you think it creates vulnerable measures for banks and consumers as well? Rolands, I'm going to throw that curveball at you. So, yeah, does it create vulnerabilities within the system?
Yeah, well, short answer, yes, it does. It exposes a system to more uncertainty, and there's more people that need to be taken care of something that's completely new. Coming back to Nicole's comment is that like we're all in this together. We're now trying to pick up open banking from the ground and try and make it work together. But then, like inside of that, of course, there are some things that you know, we are exposed to unknown threats in general as an industry, so that's just something that we need to be careful about. Some things that are good that are kind of basically embedded inside of open banking is first of all, it's regulated. That is a sign of you know, trust and a seal of trust. That is something that, for example, our colleagues from across the ponds do not have, and it's incredibly valuable that we do have this, and makes the whole ecosystem significantly more secure. Plus, on top of that, we are in an ecosystem where data privacy is something that's very, very important. We have very stringent privacy rules and regulations and laws that are literally make it, you know, make it very expensive for anyone to expose themselves to being vulnerable, and that also just makes the whole space more secure. But I mean, you know, just to kind of come back to that, it's I think this is like very much in the hands of the early adopters to be able to understand how the technology works. Also, whoever is using open banking should, you know, as we're still trying to work on building this together, people should be critical about what they're doing, what they're using, who they're sharing their account data with. Just like we're, you know, critical about who we're sharing our email with or phone number with. So the same rules apply. But the sort of the prize at the end of the at the end of it all is the ability to actually have more innovation, to have more technologies that are only possible within this open banking ecosystem. So, I mean, yes, there is. We'll need to go through a period potentially that might have turbulence, but you know, there's definitely a fantastic reason why we're going through all of this.
Exactly. The journey makes it worthwhile to get where we want to be, right? Okay, I'm just going to take the question from the floor again. If we can just start by stating your name and where you're from, please.
Hi guys, so my name's Charlie. I work for Go Cardless, which Nordigen and Yapily will both know very well, as we're very closely connected. But it was just a quick question for Connie on the iteration of VRP. So the first iteration of sweeping is coming out, but the second iteration, which opens up far more use cases, is sort of next. I just wondered what the adoption, or what you expected for the adoption from the banks, because I think they're not mandated to do that.
Yes, it's we're all looking at variable recurring payments. That's what he was talking about, VRPs. The mandate only it's for VRPs for sweeping. So we are rolling out that, and that's the last item over the roadmap. Bueno, NatWest has just signed with Ting, Yapily token. So like lots of things are coming out, but the scope of the OBAE, it's just for VRPs for sweeping.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think now that NatWest has kind of paved that way, we're seeing a lot more engagement from banks around talking about premium APIs,
yes,
things that are not covered, you know, from what is on the OBI roadmap and what's mandated. So we are seeing that more and more, you know, companies are starting to kind of sound that out, throw their hats into the ring. And we're hoping it's a really positive sign that more of this will be coming.
Of course, there's still lots of super interesting use cases, even within the sweeping. You know, if we think about the current cost living crisis, I'd say, no? Small businesses, how for open bank, for the OBAE and for open banking, one of its main goals is to support small businesses be more productive, resilient, and profitable. And if we think that, I don't know, there are 130 billion pounds sitting in small businesses' account. VRPs enables now that automated movement of cash that could support these businesses start very easily earning cash. So that's a straight thing that they should be doing, and I'm not sure how many small businesses are aware of this potentially. But these are, yeah, and we hope to see more. Those are premium APIs, and sadly it exceeds our order.
All right, we're running out of time a bit here, but I just want to go around the whole panel here. And you talked there about what you hope to see in the future. So very briefly, and I'll start with Rolands here. What do you see in the near future for open banking? So let's say the next 12 to 18 months. Where will we be?
Yeah, I think there's two things that I'm very excited about. First of all, I'm very excited about the adoption curve of open banking right now, and that is, I think everyone's looking at UK because it's this forerunner in open banking, and the adoption rate and the pace at which it's growing is very exciting, and it excites everyone else around. So like we have a lot of customers in continental Europe who use also open banking. They get inspired by stuff that's happening in the UK. So that's one thing that I'm very excited about. The next thing I'm excited about is where the open finance discussion is currently going. I think we're definitely going to see more connectivity, ways to connect your assets to third-party apps over time, and do more stuff with the things that you own, the data that you own, and sort of the finances that you own. So that I'm very excited about. I think, yeah. Okay,
great. And Connie?
Yes, I feel, as I said already, the metric that we are mostly follow or bothered by, it's adoption and usage of open banking enabled products and services, because that's what tell us how successful this is being. So I'm looking forward to see what's the next, what's the catalyst for open banking. I hope that this is like fertile ground for innovation to happen, for fintechs to bring into and for banks as well to bring more innovative, disruptive services and competitive products and services, both for consumers and small businesses. Yes, we looked at last year, it was like the HMRC, like it was the first government who adopted open banking because of, they had like 20 billion pounds just sitting there because of inefficient payments, of risks in how the payment information was inputted, your credentials, your details, the number of the invoice, whatever. So open banking can drive all these efficiencies and all these solutions. So I'm looking forward to see what's the catalyst for adoption and usage of open banking.
And Nicole, last word with you.
Yeah, so sorry I forgot your name from Go Carlos, but I think you really kind of nailed one of them for us, which is this premium API space and what's going to happen with variable recurring payments. Really hoping that's a great catalyst to see growth. And very interested to see how the world of premium APIs is going to work. Right now it's all kind of bilateral agreements. I know there's some talk in Europe about how do you kind of create more of a scheme around this kind of stuff. So how are we going to manage that, I think, is one really interesting question, and it ties into your points around adoption. The other thing that's a little closer to my heart, I guess, is thinking a little bit about how then we take those products and actually we talk about payments and we talk about data, and how do we make those work together? Because I think, per what Connie was talking about with like some of the sweeping capabilities with VRP, you can create, smart overdrafts or intelligent savings, and these kinds of products where you're using both the data and insight about how somebody manages and spends their money, and also then help move their money around for them so that they're optimized.
Yes. No, I just hope it get used, because I feel there are lots of things that are available. I don't know. There are apps that are using open banking data to potentially tell you if you're eligible for social benefits. I feel these things should get mainstream. I would love to support in that mission.
Okay, we are going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much, Nicole, Connie, and Rolands. Your panel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.